Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. In today's video we have an absolute banger to take a look at, and it is of course none other than the Transformers and Jurassic Park collaboration, Tyrannocon Rex and Autobot Jp93, a set which I've been super excited to finally get my hands on, as of course you take Jurassic Park, you take Transformers, you combine them together in order to get what is in my opinion pure awesomeness, and that is definitely what I'm seeing here, at least in Alt mode. When we get around to robot mode it's a slightly different story, but for vehicle modes and of course Dino mode, these figures look absolutely fantastic, and this is actually a collab that I hope we can actually see more of going forward. How awesome would it be to get some of the other Beast Wars characters or even Dinobot Slug done in this Jurassic Park theme? Honestly, the opportunities are endless, but nevertheless, taking a look here at this set today, essentially what we've got is Tyrannocon Rex, which is a repaint and slight retool of the Kingdom Megatron, finally in realistic T-Rex colours, and Autobot Jp93, which to my surprise is in fact a complete brand new sculpt. I, like many, was expecting them to simply just reuse Transformers Siege Hound, but nope, they've gone ahead and given this guy a complete brand new sculpt, and I definitely think he looks all the better for it, especially in vehicle mode. Now we'll start off with Tyrannocon Rex first, of course, just as we essentially know what we're getting with this, but in my opinion this is by far the best colour scheme we've gotten ever since we got Kingdom Megatron. For those of you who actually watched my review of that guy, it must have been nearly 11-12 months now. You guys all know that I was super hoping that Hasbro would in fact actually release a realistic T-Rex colour scheme, and finally that's exactly what we've got here, and I think it's turned out so nicely, definitely better than I could have imagined, and in my personal opinion this is actually one of the best T-Rex figures, even being a rival for when Hasbro actually had the license to produce Jurassic Park and Jurassic World figures. Honestly, if they had produced stuff like this back then, maybe Mattel wouldn't have actually obtained the license, as this is really impressive. The attention to detail is just fantastic. You can see as we take a look here towards the head sculpt, amazing. The skin texture detail for Kingdom Megatron is still as present as ever, and it looks super nice. Of course, we've now got a much more detailed color palette. You can see as we take a look here towards the eyes, this is in fact one of the first Megatron repaints to actually have painted pupils. Now, when I saw this in package, I actually thought that it looked pretty decent, but when you get it in hand and you actually take a look here at the head from a front-on perspective, in my opinion, it does make Tyrannocon Rex look slightly sleepy. If you turn it to the side, it doesn't look so bad, but definitely from a front-on perspective, it definitely does make him look as if though maybe he should take a rest. You can see they just seem to sit slightly too high. Maybe if they could have been a little more center, that could have perhaps looked slightly better, but honestly, that's just a minor critique. I think the fading there to the eyes has turned out super nicely. You can see the actual flesh tone that they've gone with is really impressive. All the detail going on for the mouth looks fantastic. You can see the side of the gum there. The tongue detailing, as ever, is fantastic. You can even see some nice flesh tone for the gums here. The teeth have all been individually painted, and the roof of the mouth's also been picked out with a really nice glossy black. And then as we just take a look here towards the rest of the figure, honestly, the stripe detailing is just exquisite. A really awesome paint deco going on for this figure all the way throughout. You can see these various different darker brown stripes in order to complement the lighter shade of brown that we've got going on for the skin tone. As we turn our attention to the tail, this too has also been detailed and sculpted so well. Honestly, the paint as well as the sculpt work is just remarkable. You can see here just that fade, it just looks super impressive. As we take a look here towards the thigh region, you can once again see that darker highlight here for the top, and then as it bleeds into the center it becomes a lot lighter, as you would expect from this particular character. As we take a look here towards the shins, once again we've got that same darker brown wash and of course the lighter shade, and the actual toes have been picked out in a different color of plastic just in order to match their appearance from the Jurassic Park movie. And a very similar case to the eyes. This is in fact one of the first Megatron repaints to actually have the claws here depicted in black, which I think looks super awesome. So overall, in regards to attention to detail as well as sculpt work, this is definitely what this Megatron mold was made for, in my opinion. This looks super awesome, and it's only now that we're finally realizing the potential of this, as this looks super cool, really impressive. A really nice depiction of Rexy from the Jurassic Park franchise. Of course, however, this one can in fact transform. Now, getting down to articulation, the head here can hinge up and down, the jaw can open and close to a really wide extent. You can still see that blast effect port, so maybe if Rexy here wants to get a little technical, she can fire a blast at Jp93, but really great range there. Of course, the head can look left to right. The arms here are on ball joints, so it can rotate the full 360 as well as hinge out to the sides. We do get a hinge joint here going on for the hip. The knee here can also bend forwards and backwards. The foot can hinge forwards and backwards as well as rock side to side, and you also do get a slight range of motion kicking out to the side. Here for the tail, it can articulate at the back as well as here at the tip. So overall, in regards to an actual standalone figure, in my opinion, Tyrannocon Rex, at least here in T-Rex mode, has turned out absolutely fantastic. So without further ado, let's bring in both the Kingdom Megatron as well as Maximal T-Rex and take a look at some of the comparisons. So starting off here, we've got Tyrannocon Rex, T-Rex as well as Kingdom Megatron, and you can see all three of them fantastic in their own regards. Honestly, I think the paint apps on each and every one of them are fantastic, and up until this point I actually thought that T-Rex was going to be the best repaint that we could have potentially gotten from this mold, but no, Tyrannocon Rex definitely has dethroned these two. I think he looks fantastic. Jurassic. Just taking a closer look here between him, or I guess you should say her, and of course T-Rex, you can just see exactly the same sculpt here in Dino mode. It is just the color which differs, and you can also see the difference that now the added pupil makes to that head sculpt. Once again, it would have been interesting to see how it would have turned out if they would have decided just to leave the pupil like how they have done with T-Rex. Personally, as mentioned beforehand, I do think that in some angles it makes him look slightly sleepy, but nevertheless, really nice looking detail. And of course, here he is with the legendary Predacon Megatron, just so you can see how these two particular figures compare. You started off with Megatron, and so far it appears as if though it's ending here with Tyrannocon Rex, an absolute whopper to go out with in terms of repaints. Now, for transformation, considering this figure comes packaged in Dino mode, and previously over on the channel I've only showed conversion from robot to T-Rex mode, I'll very quickly just go through how it works vice versa. So to begin with, you're going to want to take these hip panels here and just hinge them out to the side until they do click into place. Of course, come here to this side and repeat the same process. So just snap that in. We can then take this panel, bring this forward and actually click that in. Now, one thing that I have at least noticed here on my figure is that the actual knees do have a tendency to pop off, which is slightly unfortunate. I'm not entirely sure whether or not this is down to the mold degrading, or it could just be an issue here on my copy, but that is definitely something to watch out for. You're then going to want to take these hip panels, pull them out, and of course snap them there into place. Repeat the same process here for this side, so then just snap that in there. We can then flip our attention here to the underside, just essentially gut and split the belly here of Tyrannocon Rex. Take these panels that are indeed spring loaded, so they'll just snap into place. Repeat the same process. We can then take the lower legs and detach that here from the torso, bring the head sculpt up and around, rotate here, and then just compress this over the top until that does eventually snap into place. And then we can just shift this there to the back. You'll then want to come here to the hips, still an area which makes me cringe even to this day to actually transform, as these ratchet joints are just super stiff. But you're just going to want to ratchet these in accordingly, snap them into place, and of course shoot them here into the skirt region. Just angle the head around like so. We can then take this panel here, push this forwards, course reverse that to the back, and of course come to this side, and you guys guessed it, repeat the exact same process. We can then rotate here the tip of the tail, take this claw, hinge this out, rotate at the bicep, and then for some finishing touches, just orientate these hip panels round, take that, hinge that out of the way, and just collapse the dino arms in, and then take these sections here, shoot them in on both sides, and there you've got Tyrannocon Rex fully transformed up into either his or her robot mode, depending on what you wish to gender this particular character. But personally, I don't think this is the best, at least in terms of visuals. I think that if given the option between the two, I'd definitely decide to keep her in the T-Rex mode. I think that's really where this figure shines. In regards to robot mode, it's just a bit of a mess, especially of colors. We've got this incredibly bright, fiery red going on for the torso, which really and truly has got minimal paint going on. Sadly, none of these grille sections have been picked out in silver. We do, however, get a really nice glossy black, and we also do, in fact, actually get a super nice looking head sculpt. But once again, it's a little bit of a mess of a design, as I'm not entirely sure as to what they were trying to go with. To me, at least, this is definitely giving me a very stylized Grimlock design. As you can see, of course, we've got the piercing red visor and actually some pretty decent details, but it just doesn't fit with the rest of the body, in my opinion. I definitely think they could have done something a little more interesting in regards to the robot mode head design, but you can see some pretty decent sculpt work throughout. It does appear as if though it's been completely painted out of this really nice glossy black, but in regards to other paint apps, it's kept to a bare minimum. This section, for whatever reason, is in fact painted red instead of actually being cast in red, and you can see here for the hand, it's been cast out of black. But other than that, the figure is exactly what you would expect from this particular mold. Now, in regards to articulation, the head is on a ball joint, so it can look left to right and surprisingly up to a fantastic degree due to it now being a brand new sculpt. We get all of the same range of motion for the rest of the figure, so I shan't go into too much detail in regards to that. But overall, definitely not a terrible robot mode by no stretch of the imagination. The worst robot mode that I've ever seen for a Transformers character, but definitely not as good as the Dino mode, at least in my opinion. But then, saying that, you guys are more than likely going to buy this in order to actually keep it in the T-Rex form instead of the robot mode. And just to very quickly wrap up the Tyrannocon segment of this review, let's bring out Kingdom Megatron here for a comparison, just so you guys can see the differences and similarities. Of course, the main body for Tyrannocon Rex is exactly the same as Kingdom Megatron, as well as Maximal T-Rex. It is this time merely just the head sculpt which differs. It maybe would have been interesting to have seen them finally use that grinning T-Rex Megatron sculpt, as of course up until this point we haven't actually seen it released on an official figure, but nevertheless I think the sculpt we get is more than adequate. But as mentioned beforehand, in regards regards to display, definitely sticking her in T-Rex mode. And so, turning our attention to Autobot Jp93, arguably the more interesting character of the set, just as of course this is a complete brand new sculpt. I actually think here in vehicle mode this has turned out great. This looks so accurate to the vehicle that we actually see used in the original Jurassic Park movie, and I absolutely love the name. JP93, Jurassic Park, and of course 1993 was when the first Jurassic Park movie hit the silver screen and really was a huge game changer for movies going forward, and even to this day it's an absolute classic. And once again, to collab it with Transformers, in my opinion, it's just absolute genius. But you can see here, in regards to vehicle mode, a phenomenal attention to detail. Honestly, the paint apps are some of the best that I've ever seen on a mass-produced item. You can see here from the side, of course, we've got that classic Jurassic Park logo with the actual T-Rex insignia there, looking super cool. You can see some really nice red, almost camo highlights scattered throughout. I think the color of green they've used is a dead-on match for what we see on screen. You can also see some super nice yellow fading going along the side of the vehicle. Even the wheels here have been picked out in some really nice yellow, and as we actually turn here to the front, the attention to detail going on here is just fantastic. Of course, you've got the floodlights there, we've got the main lights, we've got the grille, and even as you turn here to the top of the vehicle from a bird's eye perspective, not only does the paintwork continue, but you can see how they've cast this completely out of transparent plastic. Once again, super nice attention to detail. You can even see the window wipers here at the top. Once again, some fantastic looking decals going on, such as that T-Rex as well as Jurassic Park logo, and you can also see these red stripes scattered all the way throughout the hood. We've got the side view mirrors there, which have been sculpted really nicely. As we turn our attention here to the rear of the vehicle, once again the sculpting and detailing continues. They've done such a fantastic job. We've got the rear window wiper, we've got some really nice details here, such as Explored XLT. You can see the tail lights there sculpted as well as completely painted, and we've got that 04 logo, and once again that yellow strip which goes around the edge. So overall, super impressive level of detail going on for this particular vehicle. By far one of the highlights. If this set only had one thing going for it, it would definitely be the attention to detail, as they've absolutely knocked it out of the park, pun intended. Now the vehicle can also roll incredibly well, as you would expect, so we can have that there gliding along the ground. And one thing which I absolutely love about this is actually in vehicle mode, you honestly wouldn't be able to tell this could transform. The smoky plastic they've used there for the windscreen I think looks absolutely fantastic, and as we flip it to the underside, honestly no real obvious robot mode kibble, which is fantastic. Of course, we've got the shotgun, which you'll see more of in bot mode, but overall just an absolute stunning looking vehicle mode. Now in terms of a size comparison, here we've got JP93 compared next to what is, in my personal opinion, the best collaborative piece we have gotten so far, that being Gigawatt, or of course the DeLorean. And you can see that in regards to scale, he's basically a large deluxe, at least by today's standards. Definitely large deluxe in regards to vehicle mode, and I just think it's a super impressive vehicle. These two are by far the best alt modes we've gotten out of this collaborative lineup so far, and I just cannot wait to see what other collabs Hasbro have up their sleeves. I know that they've literally just announced the Universal Monsters, with Draculus being one of the first entries into that line, so super excited to see as to what other characters we could get. Maybe we could see the likes of Frankenstein. Honestly, the opportunity at the moment is endless, so definitely the horizon for these collabs is incredibly bright, and I just cannot wait to see as to what they come up with next. Now, turning to transformation, surprisingly is actually incredibly simplistic, which overall may in fact be the robot mode's downfall. I really do think Hasbro and Takara put all of their budget and of course attention into the vehicle mode, as you would truly expect from a collaborative set, but 9 times out of 10 the majority of collectors are going to be buying this, as it is essentially a collector's piece, and of course for that Jurassic Park inspired vehicle as well as T-Rex mode for Tyrannocon. But nevertheless, we'll get straight into it. As mentioned at the beginning of this video, this guy is in fact a complete brand new sculpt, so the engineering really is something completely different. So to begin with, you're just going to want to take these door sections and pull these here out to the sides. We'll then want to separate the rear of the vehicle from the main windscreen. So just take this, detach this, and bring this here all the way to the back. You may have noticed that the shotgun did in fact attach. You are supposed to remove this beforehand, of course, but this is held in via a nice tab and slot. We can then flip here to this side, take these sections and just bring these here to the back. They do in fact actually create the heel spurs as well as the main foot section, which I do in fact actually have a critique with, but we'll touch base with that in just a second. Of course, split the legs here. We can then come to this top section, detach the windscreen from the main bulk of the vehicle, and then push the forearms through just like so. We can then angle these here out to the sides, take these and just push these up. Take the chest piece, you can see a tab there that will in fact peg into this slot, so just snap that into place. The head will in fact actually poke through this almost trapdoor, and then of course you'll just collapse that in. Take the wheels here and compress them until they do click in and sit slightly more flush here with the hood of the vehicle, and then just angle these arms down. Take this backpack, and this transparent tab will in fact peg here into this slot, and then for some final touches I would recommend using the gun to actually fold out the wrists until they do click into place. And with all that being said, here we've got JP93 fully transformed up into a rather unusual, definitely little lackluster looking robot mode. Now, truth be told, this definitely isn't bad by any stretch of the imagination, especially when in comparison to some of those older god-awful Star Wars collabs that we used to get way back in the day. But when comparing it to the likes of Gigawatt, I do find this here to be slightly uninspired. I do think that Hasbro should have gone for a little bit more of an original design when in comparison to this rather standard generic robot, which literally has just got Jurassic Park tampos slapped on it. There really isn't anything here distinctive to stand out from the rest. But as we just bring him in here for a closer look, you can see a complete brand new original sculpt. The head, I will be honest and say, I have no idea at all what they were going with. Of course, we've got this creamish helmet, but it really doesn't signify anything in my opinion. And the face is super bland, definitely not distinctive at all. Unlike Gigawatt and of course Expanse, you can see we've got a very mediocre matte grey used for the face piece. And quite honestly, the visor I think looks awful. We've got some decent green highlights there for the cheeks, but other than that, I really do think the head sculpt is a major letdown. Of course, here for the chest unit, we've got all of the same details that we saw for the vehicle mode, so I shan't touch base with that all that much. But you can see here from a side, pretty decent looking detail, nothing mind-blowing. Here for the arms, you can see very basic in terms of sculpt work, and we do in fact actually get ball joints here for the elbows, which is slightly unusual for an almost Generations figure. But you can see decent panel lining here for the arms. Sadly, we've got some hollowness there due to the nature of the design. We've got some hollowness here going on for the torso, very bland design going on for the thighs, and of course these very thick and bulky shins as well as feet, which really and truly don't look like anything at all. And it is just once again the same details that we saw in vehicle mode. As we spin here to the back, once again really not all that much going on. We do in fact actually get some nice interior door detailing going on here, which is a pretty decent touch. But other than that, to be honest with you, this does leave a lot to be desired, and it is definitely a little lackluster in my opinion. Now, in regards to articulation, the head is on a ball joint, so it can look left to right. Sadly, it can't really look up and down all that much, which is a shame. They could have hollowed this out slightly or maybe extended the ball joint in order to get a better range of motion. And sadly, the backpack actually doesn't stay tabbed in all that well either, which too is unfortunate to see. But we do get a hinge joint here at the arm, which can go forwards and backwards, out to the sides, an actual ball joint for the elbow, which I don't believe we've seen on a mainline Generations figure for quite some time. No idea as to why this isn't on a hinge, but this acts as, I guess, the bicep rotation as well as the elbow bend, no wrist rotation as well as no waist rotation. And it definitely looks as if though they maybe could have engineered that, considering this stays fixed in vehicle mode. But nevertheless, the legs can kick forwards that far, back to that far, out to the sides, rotation at the thigh, as well as a way past 90-degree bend there at the knee due to transformation. And finally, surprisingly, we do in fact actually get a rocker pivot here at the ankle, and I guess they've tried their best in order to sort of minimize the hollowness when you're actually utilizing that with some sculpt work, but it really doesn't look the best from the front. And something which I actually really hate is the fact that they've made the base of the foot, or I guess the heel spur, completely out of transparent plastic. So if you do decide to plonk this on the ground one day, I would definitely recommend being wary, as you really don't want to apply too much pressure to those feet, as you could in fact crack the pin that goes through the transparent plastic. In regards to accessories, he comes with one, that being this shotgun, and the detail on this is mediocre at best. Honestly, the sculpt work really isn't all that crisp and precise, and as we just take a look here for this side, looks a little better, but once again, not 100% perfect in my opinion. So definitely JP93 is a figure that I will forever be keeping in vehicle mode, as in regards to robot mode, it definitely is a slightly lackluster release, which is sad to say. Size comparison wise, here we've got JP93 compared next to Earthrise Optimus Prime, as well as Deluxe Class Trailbreaker, and as mentioned in vehicle mode, he's definitely a large deluxe scale, at least by today's standards. And finally, wrapping this review up, here we've got JP93 compared next to Tyrannocon Rex. You can definitely see a drastic difference in terms of scale, but overall thoughts for this set is that in vehicle mode, both the T-Rex and the vehicle look absolutely fantastic. Honestly, I cannot fault the attention to detail as well as the paint apps in their alternate modes. They look sublime, really astonishing pieces. And for those of you who are collectors of both Transformers and Jurassic Park, then you're going to have an absolute field day with these, especially if you're also a minting box collector, as they look fantastic in the packaging. I think in regards to the T-Rex, it's a great repurpose of the Kingdom Megatron. In my opinion, this is what Hasbro always intended for this mold. The level of accuracy that they actually were able to achieve with that T-Rex was extraordinary. It's by far one of the best T-Rex figures I personally have ever seen, and the fact that it transforms, honestly, is just super impressive. And the articulation for a transforming T-Rex is also incredibly well done, so cannot fault the Tyrannocon in the T-Rex mode absolutely at all. Then we get to robot mode. Much like JP93, it leaves a lot to be desired. There really isn't a whole lot of originality going on. It is simply just an almost red and black repaint of Kingdom Megatron, and you've got some of those brown highlights carried over from the T-Rex mode. The face sculpt is decent, but I would have maybe liked to have seen that head sculpt on a different figure, and then finally gotten the grinning T-Rex Megatron head sculpt for this particular guy, as I really think that would have been a great way to finally introduce that sculpt onto this mold. But as it stands, it's not a terrible sculpt, pretty decent detailing, and the paintwork on that face sculpt is also really well done. And it's great to see that for the most part the joints are very stiff, besides where those knees are concerned and those mushroom pegs every so often often want to actually fall apart. But then we turn to the JP93 figure. Vehicle mode looks absolutely sublime. That is definitely where I believe Hasbro and Takara spent the most amount of time. The level of accuracy to the actual vehicle seen on screen is just remarkable. All of those decals look so crisp and precise, so fantastic, and I think the proportions too are really well done. I love the sculpt work of the tail lights, the window wipers, just everything about that vehicle mode is awesome. And then we get to robot mode. Honestly, it lacks originality. It's very basic. It is simply just a green robot with a very peculiar head design, of which I have no idea as to really what they were going for. I think the weapon also is incredibly lackluster. Not that great sculpt work going on for that either. So overall, in terms of a recommendation, I would only really recommend this to you if you're a hardcore Jurassic Park fan or you're just a fan of these collaborative Transformers sets. This set in the UK retails for £135, which is astronomical. It's by far the most expensive collaborative set that they've put out so far, and for what is essentially a leader class and a deluxe class, I do think that that is asking way too much. Maybe if this was capped, I would say 90, then I would definitely recommend it, but at 135, they definitely are asking for way too much. So I really would recommend maybe holding out and seeing whether or not this goes on retail, as of course these figures are ultimately appealing to a very niche group of collectors, and I do not think that everybody is going to be clamoring to actually add this to the collection. But in regards to alt modes, I think that both of them look absolutely fantastic. I would love to know down in the comment section below on what you guys think of this Transformers and Jurassic Park collaborative set. Overall, I think for the most part, it's actually turned out pretty nice, and as mentioned at the beginning of this review, I would love to see them continue this collab and would really like to see some other Kingdom Beasts introduced into this, or maybe even the Transformers Studio Series Dinobot Slug. I'd love to know on what you thought of the figures. Will you be adding these to your collection? And as always, please feel free to let me know on what you thought of the review. I thank you all for watching, and until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.